Ikenfell is an amazing game. The soundtrack is, well, amazing, and it's composed by the duo that scored Steven Universe. The combat system is great, and you get a number of different styles you can battle with by choosing different characters for your team. With the exception of Gilda, I loved pretty much every character, but Ikenfell does one thing really well that lots of other games struggle with. Accessibility is on and off hot topic in gaming, but it isn't often for good reasons. We often see examples of bad accessibility, and sometimes we do see good examples in things like adaptive controllers and adaptive gaming, but we rarely see accessibility as a function of game design, and it's often seen as just an afterthought. Something else that doesn't really help is the fact that people don't even really agree on what accessibility means, because a lot of people look at accessibility as just helping those who are disabled, while other people look at accessibility as making games more playable. But I feel like this game kind of nails it in both regards, and not only makes games more playable, but also makes them more playable specifically for people that have certain impairments or disabilities. Ikenfell is great in the sense that it was clearly designed with accessibility in mind, and I think this is because one of the major themes in the game is mental health. It seems that there was a pretty clear goal to make the game feel rewarding by giving you challenging fights at times, but to also not overwhelm you by giving you control over some of the mechanics through the menu options. These options let you control difficulty, but also make the game safer and more enjoyable for all players. First up, photosensitive mode. This one's pretty simple. It reduces the frequency of flashing graphics. I don't have epilepsy and I have no issues with blinking lights, but there was one move that really bothered me, and it was hurting my enjoyment of the game for a short time. Once I realized I could decrease the flickering light effects by using photosensitive mode, that move didn't bother me anymore. The move I'm talking about is Soul Pierce, by the way. You can see the difference here, and honestly, the original screen flicker was pretty jarring, so I'm happy that they made a fix for it. Even for people who don't have epilepsy, I think little changes like this can make a big difference for your enjoyment of the game. Next up, they have content warnings. Ikenfell Writing and Sensibility team member Joanna Blackheart was interviewed and explained that they wanted to ensure the game was emotionally safe as well as physically safe, like with the photosensitive mode. Mental health related topics such as low self-worth, self-abuse, and self-harm appear frequently, if not constantly, throughout the game. And these topics can negatively impact a person's mental health, or even simpler, just dampen the enjoyment that the player has if they're not prepared. There are also a couple of other minor accessibility settings, such as auto run, thrown in too, but there are two main options that I think really made this game enjoyable for me where it otherwise wouldn't have been. Difficulty options for timed hits and auto victory enabled. So for timed hits, you can pick manual, semi-auto, or auto for the timed hit execution. I'm usually pretty good at timed hits, having played games like Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga and the Paper Mario series a lot. The first thing I noticed when actually playing the game though was that the timed hits felt more difficult than the games I was used to. It honestly felt pretty bad, but I eventually figured out that I could make the timing windows less strict by choosing semi-auto, and that completely changed my enjoyment of the game. This basically acted like the timing tutor badge in Paper Mario, in the sense that it made it so that landing the timed hits was easy enough that I could pretty consistently get them, even though there were still some that I would miss. I still needed to execute my strategy, and I couldn't ignore the timed hits, but it wasn't as bad if I missed one here or there. My son Tyler played on auto, and still had fun timing the attacks. I don't think he even realized that I had set his file up that way, and he still had fun doing the battles. At the beginning of the game on manual, it felt like challenge mode, because timing was tough, but it definitely serves a purpose for those more willing to master the timing of the moves. It should be noted that the timed hits affect both attacking and blocking, and that has a big impact on gameplay. After beating the game, it felt like it was designed to be played on semi-auto, but I could be wrong. Finally, the other setting that saved my late game experience is auto victory. Now, I've beaten lots of strategy and RPG games, and I tend to always want the best equipment and to 100% games when I can. I also wanted to fight every enemy at least once, but towards the end of the game I wanted to grind a little. Because there's so much customization of equipment and there are lots of items to buy, I needed lots of coins to afford those equipment and items. Certain fights also took a longer amount of time, which made me not want to grind. So what's the solution to that problem then? Well, easy, you enable auto victory. This may sound cheap, but the end result is the same as just grinding normally, and it saves time. Auto victory automatically wins you the phase of the fight you're in. That means in a regular encounter, it just wins you the fight and you get the experience points and gold drops like you would normally get. In Ikenfell, there are a number of enemies though that will break or turn into another enemy after defeating it, which results in there being stages or phases in the battle. So if you're battling enemies that have phases, auto victory only beats that phase, which I would imagine is intentional so that those who are struggling with one part of a boss fight can skip that part if they get too frustrated. It also gives you a chance to practice against just the first or second phase of an enemy if you're having a hard time learning the timing for its attacks. The system is really simple, and there are no requirements that need to be met to allow you to auto-win. You don't need to reach a certain point in the game, a specific level, or make any amount of progress to enable it. It doesn't require finding a hidden item. It's not tied to a character or ability. It's just an option. I used it to speed up the process of getting money in-game to buy better equipment, but it can be used for leveling or to just win fights if you're stuck on them. If this was baked into the core of the gameplay, I'd probably have been annoyed. Like in Super Mario 3D Land and in 3D World, if you die 5 times in a level, the Super Tanuki suit will appear as a golden white super leaf. When you use it, you get an invincible Tanuki suit, which lasts until the end of the level. Mario 3D Land just drops it in front of you, which can feel pretty disheartening. Since it was just an option in Ikenfell though, it doesn't naturally come up in the gameplay on its own, although the game tells you pretty early to check the accessibility options. So it's really up to you to turn the feature on, which gives you a feeling of agency. I wanted to 100% the game, and I got really close. I missed a couple of gems, but I beat all of the hidden battles, and the accessibility options made this much more enjoyable and let me play it the way I wanted to, at the pace I wanted to, and that sense of agency perfectly matches the plot of the game, which makes it just that much better. If you haven't already tried Ikenfell, do yourself a favor and give it a shot.